So today I'm going to be doing a review on my bike. Just letting it warm up. There we go, now it's warm. So yeah, today I'm going to be doing a review on my bike. 2019 Honda CB125F. It's done me well so far. So I bought this bike when it was around 24,000 miles on the clocks. This is now on 28,500, which means I've done around 4,500 miles roughly. So yeah, it's on 28,500 miles, 4,500 of which I've put on myself. I've taken this thing to Dorset, Southend, Bedford, all up and down the country, and I absolutely love it. So this is, I'm going to call it the first generation of the CB125F, because my friend Kat, who I'll leave her Instagram in the description, she has the newer version of the CB125F, which is, I believe, from 2001. Is her one. Mine's 2019, so there's a few differences. When I first got this bike, the exhaust had a hole in the downpipes. Yeah, in the downpipes. So I had to switch out the exhaust pretty damn quick. So I ended up going for a Black Widow. Kept the baffle in because I'm not really one of them chavs or fucking scatty people. And to be honest, it's more than loud enough as it is. I live in London, as you may or may not know, considering all of my content's mostly based in London. And yes, loud pipes save lives. I don't know if you're part of that movement, but I definitely am. And having a slightly louder pipe has actually saved my arse quite a few times. The stock exhaust, quiet as hell. Even with a hole in the manifold, it was still very, very quiet. So when I bought this, I believe the previous owner may have dropped it, as the shifter, the left foot shifter, was actually bent in a bit. So I replaced that. I've replaced the mirrors, I replaced the bars, the grips as well. I put on gummy BMX grips just to make it a bit more mine, a bit more personal. And yeah, as I say, I've taken it to Dorset. I don't know if you've seen that series. I'll try and leave a link in the description. But yeah, it handled pretty well on the dual carriageways, screaming out about what it said on the speedo that it was screaming about 70, but in reality that's more like 61 miles per hour because the clocks are always off slightly, so like you don't end up speeding. The things I love about it, so there's other people that have said this thing is hideous, and to be fair, from stock it's not the greatest of lookers for 125s. But after I've done my customizations, people have just been constantly walking up to it, asking me what my bars are. Even in the comments, people have been asking what bars do I have, where do I get my mirrors from, all things like that. And I took it to the bike shed, and there were some actual experienced riders who were saying it was a beautiful bike, and they were surprised it was a 125. Obviously the L plate's a bit of a giveaway, but will it creep? So basically when you're trying to go on faster roads like this, for example, 40 miles per hour, not the fastest of roads of course, but it gets up to speed relatively quick. One gripe I do have about this bike is the first gear is super short. You could actually pull away in second gear if you was going slow enough, but yeah, it's very short first gear. But other than that, the gearing, smooth as hell. Have I had any problems with it? Absolutely not. I had a snap chain probably about 2 weeks after I bought it, but that's just where it hasn't been serviced, so I just took it. basically put the chain on myself with the help of a few friends, and this is why we do road positioning. Jesus. So yeah, it's had a snap chain and the battery was dead. That's about it. But it was the original battery, so it's kind of expected, I guess. And the chain was very, very worn out as well, so I replaced that with a DID chain. Yeah, it's been doing me well ever since. Not had it break down once, no splutters. I will say I have been getting false neutrals before I changed my shifter, but that's mostly because the shifter was actually bent in a bit. Since I changed it, I've had no slipping gears, no false neutrals, and it's been doing me a load of good. Now, it's not the fastest of 125s, it's definitely not the slowest, especially if you compare it to like the Keyway Superlight and the RKF bikes. You know, it's a good learner, it's very forgiving. As I say, where the first gear is very, very short, I have accidentally wheelied it a couple of times. Unintentionally, of course. Another gripe I have about the CB125F is the back brake is a drum brake, and the shoes in the drum brake of my one specifically, I don't know if it's for all of them, but the shoes in the actual drum brake of mine are really, really worn down, and they actually squeak. Let me see if I can get a squeak. I don't know if you heard that or if you might have picked it up. Always checking your mirrors. Nice and quickly. That was literally 0 to 40 in like a couple seconds. I'm in 4th gear right now. My one specifically doesn't have a working gear indicator, but you don't really need it if you know what you're doing, so it's never actually bothered me. Now, I taught myself gears on this bike, so I didn't ever have a lesson on how to ride gears, and this bike was very forgiving when I was learning how to ride gears. Yeah, I've had it on the speedo, max speed, screaming out. It said 75 miles per hour, but I'm gonna just go under the assumption that it was actually much less. Probably about 65 to 68 miles per hour, I'd say. How does it handle? Well, you see, it's very nimble. It's a 125, so it's super light, of course. But it is very nimble. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull over here. I'm going to load up my maps. Okay, so I actually do know where I am. Fair enough. Check your mirrors, of course. So it's a very forgiving bike, never broken down on me, never had any issues. Other than, as I say, a snap chain and a dead battery. Obviously, where it is a 125, you're going to be screaming out the gears to keep up with traffic most of the time. Not always, of course. Usually I bounce just before the red, so I'm at 8,000 RPM, and usually I'll just bounce before them. But sometimes, especially on hills, you do need to run it into the 9 to 10,000. Sometimes you'll hear yourself actually blipping it. As I say, I've done some really, really long journeys on this. The seat is super comfortable. Like, I've done 5.5 hour rides on this specific bike, and my arse hasn't hurt at all. And even a good friend of mine, Tommy Two Wheels, I'll leave a link to his description, to his channel in the description as well. He was even complimenting the seat and how it's never given him any back pain or any pain in the bum or anything like that. And everyone I've actually heard that has, well, everyone I've spoken to that actually owns one of these bikes, never had any back pain, never had issues with their arse. And overall, it's been great experiences all around. Now, I'm going to be very biased here and say this is arguably one of, if not the best learner bike probably in the world. You know, it's Japanese, it's Honda, absolutely reliable. You can't really get better reliability than a Honda, can you? So, many people will argue with that, but leave them to it. You don't really get more reliable than a Honda. I've owned a few Hondas in my time. I've had the Honda CB125F. I've had a Honda CB125. I've ridden the Honda Vision, which is a moped, on my actual CVT, which I did with one-stop instructions in Muswell Hill. So back to the bike. A full tank, usually I can get around, if I'm pushing it on dual carriageways and going quite hard, I'll usually get around 150 miles per tank. Now I believe this tank specifically is either 11 litres or 13 litres. I think it's 11 litres and 2.5 litres reserve tank, which makes it 13 litres, but it could be 13 litres with a 2.5 litre reserve tank, which could make it, what, 15.5 litres. But overall, you're pretty much never filling it up. Like me personally, I put about, I don't know, I live in London, so it costs me about 15 quid a tank. That's with E5, which is, or V-Power, basically the premium fuel, the highest octane. 15 quid, and it will last me about a month. So if you're commuting to work every day, for example, you're going to get quite a lot of miles out of it. You're going to be saving a lot more money than if you was to use public transport. So to put that into perspective, I'm not sure if you've watched my London to Dorset series, but I personally managed to get from London to just past Southampton on half a tank before I needed to refill. I probably could have made it the whole way to Dorset with half a tank. Yeah, I could have probably made it all the way to Dorset with half a tank. So basically you're going to get yourself very, very far if you're doing long distance touring. And I think that was on a tank of E10 as well, which is the lowest octane you can buy within the UK. But normally I fill it up with E5 because you get yourself a few more miles and it gives it a little bit more power, believe it or not. Not much, nothing dramatic, barely noticeable. But yeah, you get a bit more power out of it, which is always great. And you know what, I'm going to take it up some hills just to demonstrate the power this bike actually has. So I'm in second gear right now. Second gear I can scream it all the way up to like 40 miles per hour if I wanted to. I mean, I wouldn't, but I can. Same with third gear. Third gear you get about 50 miles per hour of it, which is actually brilliant in my opinion. Definitely not recommended, of course, but you can. And again, obviously environmental impacts play a huge role. So if it's a big hill, if it's wet, it kind of determines how you're going to be riding. So as a first bike, I can't really fault it. A lot of companies, a lot of instructors actually suggest you to get either a YBR by Yamaha 125 or a CB125F or even the CB125R. Yeah, my brother-in-law had a CB125R. He was getting around 80 miles per hour on his. Mine, you're lucky to get, what, 70 really. If you're going downhill, you get 75, but that's all just speedo range. That's not the actual genuine speed. So again, in second gear, going up this hill, 30 miles per hour. You can handle it. Crawling in traffic, the clutch is very smooth, very buttery. Yeah, the clutch is very smooth, very buttery. Downhill, the brakes ain't too bad. Even though the back brake is a drum brake, it's still not too bad. I mean, I wouldn't rely on solely the back brake. The front brake is nice and sharp. That's an actual disc brake, but it's not so sharp that you're going to throw yourself over the bars, which is actually pretty good. So this is just the back brake. Not the sharpest of things. Mine could do with tightening up, maybe even replacing, to be fair. As you see, it gets to speed very, very quickly. Flip shifting perfect, which will be your main form of shifting anyway. Some people call it rev matching, I believe that's the technical term. I call it flip shifting.